Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeff Stravino. I'm the president of the UB Law Alumni Association. Thank you to everyone for joining. And thank you very much to our Social Justice and Racial Equity Committee, co-chaired by Heather Gresham and Crystal Rodriguez Dabney. I'm going to turn it over to Heather in a minute. And the members of that committee, Jeff Gleason, Ann Joint, Marianne Mariano, Melissa Nixon, Holly Tucker, for putting together the programs that we've had so far this year. You may remember on March 9, we had a successful program with some presenters from the Race Matters Institute on microaggressions. And I'm very excited what Heather has been able to do with today's program and to get Dr. Ursuline Bankhead for this important presentation on allyship at work. And just given the events in Buffalo and now the events across our country, really appreciate everybody being part of this and doing whatever you can to think a little deeper and then hopefully act and do what we can, as you've probably heard me say now maybe too many times, whether it's at the annual dinner or some of the other events. I feel like we've been very blessed, and maybe we don't even always appreciate it in the positions that we're all in. And hopefully we can pay it forward and do better and make differences in our community. I also just very briefly, I see Dean Aviva Abramowski is here. Hi, Dean. Thank you very much for joining, the Dean of the Law School. There have just been so many fantastic events. We had a really nice event last week in New York City and other events with the annual dinner a few weeks ago that the law school has had and with graduation and that the dean's putting on. So really appreciate that. And I also want to introduce briefly Sarah Washington, who's the current president of the Gold Group, the graduates of the last decade, and thank her for all that she's been doing for the Gold Group. And she's going to be joining the Law Alumni Association board next week. And Vice Dean Eileen Fleischman, thanks for all you've done, as always, for being a supporter. So I know I went past my allotted 45 seconds. Dr. Bankhead, welcome, but I'm going to turn it over to Heather Gresham, who put this all together, and to let her introduce you. And thank you, Heather, for all that you've been doing for our board and with this committee and group and these programs.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and welcome everyone. I could speak quite a lot about Dr. Bankhead. I've had the pleasure to work with her a lot over the last 2 years, but I will let her work her magic. I'll just give a brief introduction about Dr. Bankhead. Dr. Bankhead is a licensed psychologist from Western New York. She is the psychology chief / assistant chief of mental health and chair of the Health Equity Committee for the VA of Western New York. She's also a member of the Attorney Grievance Committee for the 8th Judicial District of New York State and has served as a consultant and supporter of many local organizations in Western New York. We are in for a fabulous session today. Just want to note that this is part of, as Jeff mentioned, part of the Social Justice and Race Equity Committee, and also part of the very deliberate and intentional programming that the Law Alumni Association offers to be very inclusive and to raise issues of awareness that are important to not only the legal community, but our entire community as a whole. So thank you very much, Dr. Bankhead.
Okay, thank you. And as Heather knows, many people on this call, and I go way back. So, and I love working with attorneys. So I was asked to talk about allyship at work, and I thought of this in two different ways. One was allyship in your workplace, as well as allyship in action. And I'm really going to focus on allyship in action, and we're going to talk about what it is and it isn't. If you could advance the slides to the next one, please. So here's some basics just to get us kind of grounded. So again, I think you're all muted, but I want you to use the chat box. So anyone who's heard me present, you know, I like interaction. Use the chat box. I want you to ask questions. I want you to think, but also know that our time is limited, so I may compress some questions. So I want you to be interactive. I do want to hear your thoughts, or if you're saying, well, what about? That is okay. We'll be monitoring the chat. But I also want you to recognize that as I'm talking, you may feel some discomfort. Discomfort is okay. That is the intersection of growth. right? So you don't grow when you are sitting in the same place. So as I'm talking, you may say, oh, that's me, or, oh, I want to do something else. Doesn't mean you're a good or bad person. What it means is that it's something to pay attention to, right? So if I say something and you're like, ugh, pay attention to that. Okay, next slide, please. So Heather asked me to do this talk quite a while ago. And, and she's heard me speak about, some of you have heard me speak about racial battle fatigue, but particularly the events locally on May 14th. Made your Black friends who are already emotionally drained, right? And from that, so going back, right? So when we talk about the protests summer of 2020 and subsequent protests that have happened and culminating certainly in what happened just over a week and a half ago, we have this question about what do I do, and people very often when I do these types of talks will say, well, how do I be an ally? I want to be an ally. And in a very real sense, being a person of color, being asked that when you're in the midst of your own grief can be really challenging. It can actually be really, really exhausting, right? How can I be? What can I be? When we talk about allyship, and we're going to get into a definition, I'm going to re-emphasize over and over and over that allyship is action, right? Allyship, has multiple components, and we have to go with what fits who we are. But allyship is movement. It's moving through the world. It's how we interact. And it can look multiple ways. Next slide. Because when events like this happen, I swear PowerPoint moves my slides around, but when events like last week happened, or a week and a half ago happened, your friends who have been the targets, even if they weren't in the same city, of a horrific event. So the Tree of Life shooting, Buffalo, over at Tops and so on, we still have to show up. And the thing that I tend to find with allyship is that, let me back up. Right now in Buffalo, in a neighborhood that is largely ignored, that has had very little allyship historically. We now have the Buffalo Bills and the Sabres coming in. We have people coming in who never really frequent that community or go there at all. And so I guess I'm going to toss it out there into the chat, right? Is that allyship, or is it something else? You haven't been before, and it doesn't mean that you're not welcome. But is it allyship to show up in that moment? And let's see what's happening in the chat. Somebody says it's performative. What are some other thoughts? Is it allyship? It's insulting to those there. Somebody says it's allyship because it's showing support. We're going to break down what allyship is versus support, right? Because those are two different things. Support is important. And so please, let's not, look at support as something completely negative. But allyship has its own unique definition. And when we think about what is performative, right, because it can be performative or not, we're going to break that down a little bit more. I'm going to posit to you all that showing up once may not be allyship. It could be, but it may not. We have in the chat, I think them trying to do something, but not being willing enough to do more. It's performative. And I think that it's allyship as it ultimately has little impact for those affected or the communities that continue to be affected, right? So when we're talking about things being performative, this is what we're talking about. So let's assume everybody on this call is very well-meaning. And I'll put myself in this category. There's certain things where I say, oh my gosh, that's terrible. I would change my Facebook post. I'll do an Instagram message, post or whatever. I'm being supportive, but maybe I'm not being an ally. Can you switch next slide? Our code word was going to be banana, but it's not. So here's some things to get us started. And feel free to put in the chat, or if somebody, and I don't know, Brandon, if we have it set up where if somebody raises their hand or whatever, that we can unmute them. If we have that option, I'd really like to do that in hindsight. So what does allyship even mean to you? And before we get into the definitions. Anybody have thoughts on that? Okay, I'm going to tell y'all, like I tell everybody, I am a psychologist. I can wait all day in silence. Okay, means you're promoting equity. I could say this was it. Oh, okay, won't let it go to everyone. Okay, so it's all direct messages to me. Okay, ask how you can provide helpful. Was it connect with the community? Let's see, it means that you are loading, let's see. Oh, okay, Brandon has the chat limited. I'm sorry. Okay. So it means standing with the group and working towards doing better. It's for the help the advance the interests of marginalized groups. It's using your privilege to support and stand with those who don't belong to your group, essentially support and intentional action, right? So the intent is absolutely critical, right? So me driving by the scene of, driving by Tops just to say, oh my God, I feel so bad. That's not even really support. What that is performative. It's voyeurism at times. When people use their power privilege to combat negative that they hear about marginalized people, and when they intentionally advance them. Right. So inconsistent. Okay. So this is the basic idea. But I think that the next question is also really relevant. So what does it mean to the group that you're claiming allyship with? So you've shown up. You've said, this is terrible. Maybe you even brought groceries because you are a good human being. But we have to question, well, okay, well, what does it mean to the people who we are supporting to have us there, to march, to cry, to pray, whatever the case may be? And I think that that's something we also have to consider. And also, why are you allying with that group now, especially if you have not in the past? And so when we're talking about allyship at work, what pivoted you to go in that direction? Now, again, it could be a major event, it could be a shooting, it could be because you love someone, but it's really important to understand if you're allying for you solely or if you're allying for them. Because allyship is not about me. If I'm marching in pride, it's about somebody else. It's about another group that is marginalized. If I'm celebrating Juneteenth, it is actually because I'm Black, so Juneteenth, I'm celebrating myself. But if I'm celebrating, a Latinx or Hispanic festival, then what I'm doing is, am I doing it just for me, or am I in solidarity with somebody? And we have to be really, really, really clear, about that. Okay, thank you. The chat's been open, so that's helpful. Thank you so much. So we have to understand what our intent is. So we talk a lot about in DEI work about, intent versus impact. And I'll be very honest, my concern with what just happened is that the intent is really good, but the impact is that there will be resources and then they'll be gone in 3 weeks. Right? We care about you, but now the news cycle has changed. And allyship doesn't let us do that. Next slide, please. So I go to Merriam-Webster because, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but allyship is the state or condition of being an ally, a supportive association with another person or group. Okay, kind of superficial, seems easy, kind of means I'm not being a jerk. But specifically, in association with members of a marginalized or mistreated group to which one does not belong, right? So the association, here's where Merriam-Webster gets it almost right. So the association is not enough, right? Am I an ally for veterans because I go to work? Maybe, maybe not, but am I just showing up to get the paycheck? Am I an ally, for some other community because I bought a ticket to an event? Maybe, maybe not. What I do know is that when we're talking about allyship, I always wonder, what do people want from it, right? So if I'm an ally, am I doing, and actually next slide, am I doing photo ops? Am I doing engaging? So we're going to kind of pause here and we're going to go back to the chat. So is it allyship or performance art? So someone mentioned in the chat earlier that, allyship can be performative. Is allyship non-biased thoughts? Is it marching in during Pride or during Juneteenth? Is it donating money? Is it volunteering? At what point is it performative versus real, right? So think about it this way, is that allyship takes you out of your comfort zone if we're doing it right, okay? Allyship means I don't get to sit behind a computer. Allyship means that I'm in the mud and the dirt and experiencing and listening to the pain that somebody may be going through. Allyship is deeper than that. I'm gonna kind of pause. I'm gonna make sure you all are paying attention. Somebody give me their own definition. Well, actually, I'm gonna go back to something else. Why is this even important to even talk about allyship? Why are you all here? You could be eating lunch, writing briefs, doing torts. I don't even know what a tort is, but you could be doing all sorts of other things. Why are we even talking about allyship? And again, understanding this has been planned out for a while. What brings you to this topic? And again, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. The desire to be part of change because it's a community, we need to do better. Definitely. What else do we have? Insecurity about how to be an ally, but wanted to do more was it than I have in the past? Sure, right? And sometimes we get anxiety about doing more. What else? Why else? Why else is this a topic at all? Want to consider my own work, was it, and when I'm keeping myself honest in the work towards an anti-racism and other allyship, learning how to be there, was it helpful? Right, after the 3-week window, right? And again, why is it important? I'm going to keep going back to, and why is this important? It's our responsibility to dismantle systems of white supremacy. Yes. And why is that important? See, I'm a psychologist, so I'm going to keep digging. I'm going to keep digging. This is what I do. There's want to learn how non-minority employees can be better allies for us, right? Because those are marginalized groups matter. Yeah, of course, right? Okay, but do marginalized groups matter once the news cycle ends? That's my question. Do they matter? Because remember, we watched, everybody turned out for George Floyd, and we found out within 6 months after we all went back to work in our normal lives that support around Black Lives Matter dropped significantly from its peak during that summer, and it went back to meh. Right? It's important because we're human, our human brains default to easy answers. Yeah, the brain is super lazy. We need to be challenged to look deeper and act bigger. What's the cost though? If you go deeper and act bigger, what do you have to give up? Because you're going to have to give up something to be an ally, as I'm going to define it. Right? The ways we think the world works. Yeah, you have to give up the way you think the world works. What else do you have to give up? Comfort, pride, ego. You have to give up comfort, privilege. You have to give your time. Yeah. To be an ally is to risk even friendships and relationships. Right? So being an ally, again, it's not just wearing a t-shirt, right? It goes beyond marching during Pride or Juneteenth and donating, but it can be volunteering, it can be donating. It is all of that plus more, right? And so we have to remember all of this. Can you do the next slide, please? So when we talk about types of allyship, right, you do have that performative. This is doing allyship, right? I'm showing up for the photo op. So I'm going to be really, really honest. So to give you context, Tops Market is down the street from where my paternal grandparents lived, right? So on Riley. So I grew up big chunks of my childhood in that neighborhood and in the fruit belt. So I feel this very keenly, very sharply. I will honestly tell you, I'm super annoyed that people who have never cared about that neighborhood have shown up, and that some of them will say, and thank you very much, I'm done. Right? And again, grateful for what they've done, but also knowing that we're going back to status quo, right? So some people do show up. It's the pictures of the person who's gone to, a poor nation and has taken selfies with a starving child and saying, look at the good work I've done. It's performative. It's so that I can say I'm a good person, right? Because it's not really about the people who need the assistance. It's about being able to pat myself on the back. I'm good. And granted, I can still care. Those things can be true all at the same time, but this is for attention. It is for ego, right? Real allyship is very often very quiet. It can be very loud, but it can also be extremely quiet. It is sometimes just showing up and saying, yeah, you can take a picture, but I'm still doing this task, on and on and on. Someone mentioned support, and it can be verbal or monetary support, and sometimes that's needed. And it can be saying, well, I think that what you said is wrong. It can be, I support you. I hope that you're okay. Support is important, but support is not necessarily allyship, but it can be a component of it. But when we talk about real allyship, this is where, and I totally stole this definition. See, there's a little quote down there. It's a lifelong process of building supportiveness. Lifelong. I want you to get that part. Is that it is not just today. It can start today, but it is a lifelong process of building supportive associations and relationships based on trust. In other words, the community who I am aligning with, you have to get in there, do the work, listen, learn, understand. You have to be consistent. In other words, it is not a one or done, right? It's accountability for your own biases, for your own work, the things you need to do. And it's accountability with marginalized individuals and groups. I love this part. An ally actively promotes and aspires to advance a culture of inclusion through intentional and positive and conscious efforts. In other words, I know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, and I'm holding myself accountable for when I fail, when I don't do it. The works and efforts must be recognized by those with whom you're seeking to ally, not to put you on a pedestal. It is, we are recognizing that you are now in the work, in the dirt with us to advance equity and inclusion. So I'm going to pause. Does that resonate with any of you? What do you think about this definition? Does it resonate? Does it make you pull back and go, oh my gosh, that's so big. I can't do that. Let's see, what are thoughts? Right? It is intimidating, absolutely. It can feel overwhelming. Of course. But is it really overwhelming? You know, let me actually ask a better question. Was it absolutely, it should be a lifelong process, right? And unwavering in its support. Right. The overwhelming part is in part the commitment you have to make, right? This is like getting married, right? I'm going to trust you. Was it look at all of your dirt, look under the dirt and see what's there. I'm going to help you try to clean it up, but I'm going to get dirty too. And that's the painful part of it, right? It helps to put in perspective. We need to start right one step at a time. Yeah, sometimes it's just showing up to a meeting, right? But people who are in the work will obviously help, right? Let's see. Yep, I'm going to get dirty too. Right. So somebody was in a direct message said, you know, I'm going to get dirty too. That's the part you have to accept, and that you're not the boss. You're not the one who has all the answers. You're not the boss. So when we think about the efforts, right, recognized, and sometimes allyship means we get corrected. Sometimes we get it wrong. I'm like, yeah, you know, I think blah, blah, blah. And someone will be like, yeah, honey, that's not it. Allyship requires us to have a certain level of humility, right? It means that we have to be able to go into this space, sometimes shut up and say, would you like me to go clean up the back closet? I need to clean up after the dog? And I mean metaphorically. Can you go to the next slide, please? I want to be real clear. Saviorism is not allyship, right? So saviorism is when groups go into a community and they tell them what they need. This is somewhat not a lot, but some of what I'm seeing on the East Side. And I'm going to teach you about who you are and how to be better. And I'm going to push you in the directions in which I need you to be. And I think that my experience from having worked on the East Side or wherever leads to all the correct answers and feeling above, because I'm saving you from yourselves, right? And I get to fix you, and those people should be grateful that I'm here. This is all about saviorship. And when we're doing the work of allyship, we need to be really, really cautious that we are not trying to be a savior. You see, because the people, wherever they are, east side of Buffalo, Charleston, everywhere, they have already lived in this environment. They have already survived. If it's a challenge, they have already experienced, they've already heard all the platitudes and so on. That's not what we need. Next slide, please. It also isn't tokenism, because sometimes I will hear people say, well, we're allies and I have a Black lawyer in my office. And I just go, oh my gosh, no. That's not the way this works, right? So allyship isn't tokenism, right? So it's not, because tokenism is also performative. Allyship, well, hold on. I'm going to kind of pause here. Can you go back one slide for me? Thank you. Have any of you seen what I'm talking about when I talk about saviorism? Do you get what I'm talking about? Have you seen it in yourself, in others, in agencies? Does this make sense to you as to why it's not allyship? Okay, Brandon, can you unmute where we have, oh wait, is that a hand up or just a thumbs up? Thumbs up. Okay. Can we unmute so if somebody does want to say something that we can give them that option?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. So yeah, because I'm kind of tired of hearing my own voice. I like to hear other voices.
You have a hand?
Yeah. All right. So hand up. So I say hand up. Annalisa.
So to your question, I think that, so I used to run a nonprofit, and it was one of the early lessons that I had to learn, because I think a lot of nonprofit work, being able to listen to the community, you get a grant and you're going to do this. That doesn't mean you've listened to what the community wants in that way. I think that's true. And I think that's what makes allyship hard sometimes, because often we're taught what we can do is give our gifts and that saves someone. When the reality is most people know what they need. The ability to listen to them, tell us what they need when we want to go in and help, I think is what differentiates. And it's one of those things that I think makes allyship really difficult, because you are constantly, am I doing this because I think it's what's right? Or have I listened to someone to tell me this is what I need and this is how you can help? And I think that's really hard for people to sometimes get to when you've been, sorry, I'm home. When you've been sort of ingrained your whole life to be a helper, to justify that that's not helping anymore. And I'm going to mute because the dog wasn't barking.
Yeah, no, definitely. Right. So it's, again, sometimes us having to, again, be quiet. What are some other thoughts? Like when we're talking about saviorism versus allyship? And again, just kind of raise your hand and unmute. Oh, come on. I know attorneys, y'all talk a lot. That is like your entire job. If we're going back to this idea, right, which is it requires us to take a back seat, sometimes unless we're asked to push forward. So again, we're going back to that idea of humility. We're going back to that idea of, I need you to, again, maybe pick up the dog poop. Sometimes that is what will be helpful. Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
So maybe the difference between saviorism and allyship is, when you see somebody fall down in front of you, saviorism, you run over to them, you pick them up off the ground, you dust them off and say, you're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Whereas perhaps allyship is going to that person who has fallen down, looking them in the eye, either extending the hand out, waiting for an expression from that person on the ground, what they need in order to either get off the ground. Maybe they don't want to get off the ground. Maybe they just want to sit there for a bit. Maybe they want to talk. Maybe they don't want to do something, but you're just there for them. And so I see those two things in those lenses.
Yeah, and I think that that's another great example, right? Which is, I'm not telling you to get off the ground. I'm saying, how can I, right? I'm of service to you, right? In this moment. Nanette?
Hi, I really don't have anything to add other than what you've said. I just, I'm just the sort of person that jumps in when nobody's, raising their hand. But okay. Yeah, I really don't have anything to add that you haven't said. I even have a problem with the idea of allyship, because I believe that, allyship still sets up an us and a them. Mm-hmm. We are going over to help them. Nothing is going to move forward in with racial equity until white people see Black people as themselves. You hear white people all the time say, wow, now that I have a Black nephew, I am really involved in these things. Now that all of what we're talking about is in their home, is sitting at a dinner table at their, in their dining room, now they get it and now they want to help. Until white people get to that place where they don't see us as them, somebody over there that they want to help, where they see us as your city, your neighborhood, your people, that's beyond allyship. That's oneness. And until we get there, nothing is really going to forward, I feel.
Right. And so you're speaking like, for example, when they say, you know, over in the Black community, right?
Right.
Right. So, and separating out the verbiage. You know, I have mixed feelings because I see where you're going with this and it makes sense. And at the same time, we are in a nation of us and thems on multiple levels where, you know, I talk about, you know, caste like status all the time.
Yeah.
You know, but the fact is, and Jim, I'm coming right to you next, by the way. You know, but I think that where we are today, we do need allies, right? Because when we think about structures of power, right? If you think about, you know, law and how law has been structured to marginalize, whether it's women, indigenous people, Black people, Asian, you know, we have this whole history, right? And we need allies who have been empowered to help dismantle some of those systems that have created this imbalance. And that is very dangerous for marginalized groups. Let me speak explicitly. You know, when we talk about things like white supremacy, when we talk about patriarchy and so on, it can be extremely dangerous, you know, and we've seen that happen. So allyship definitely is deeper. Let me go to Jim.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, saviorism, I think, is coming in and saying, "I'm a lawyer, I'm an expert, I have training or whatever it is, I have money to donate, and I can fix what you need. I see what your problem is, and I can fix it. I can help to fix it." And allyship is coming in and listening and saying, "You're the ones who live this every day. You're the ones who've thought about this more than I ever have. What do you need?"
Right. And it's being open to that, right? And so we're back to, you have to be humble around this. Can you do the next slide, please? And the next slide after that. Right? So when we're talking about allyship, it definitely is the listening. It is sometimes listening to stuff you don't want to hear, right? It is hearing, you know, listen, here's how these systems have hurt. Here's how these systems have oppressed. Here's what happened to me yesterday. And without you engaging, you, me, whoever, engaging in microaggressions, without saying, no, no, no. Are you sure? Are you sure that that happened? That would never happen. That's a nice person. It is listening. What I don't have on here is believing, but it's also learning. Right. So summer 2020, so many of my girlfriends were reading White Fragility and books like that. It's okay to learn, but then what? Allyship says, and then what? Right. So I've learned, now what? It is asking exactly what some of you are saying. What do you need? Or let me know how I can help because I'm going to be here. And by the way, meaning, we're back to that other slide, the commitment to being present and not running away when things get hard, which is the last point. It is, I am coming alongside you. I'm not trying to lead you. I'm not trying to push you over. I'm not assuming I have all the answers, but it is so active to be exhausting at times. And when you're tired, you take a rest and then you come back in. That is allyship. Allyship is sometimes as simple as with a shaky voice saying to your uncle, your dad, your mom, your boss, your friend, you know what you said was so bigoted. I'm so angry. I'm so disappointed. That is one part of allyship, and to do it each and every time. And if you are a boss, right, or you're a supervisor or in a position of power, when somebody says, calls us out on it, saying, wait, let me think about it. Let me genuinely reflect, not just get defensive and go, how can I do better? And exploring how we can do better so that we are dismantling, again, bias for a more equitable world. Because guess what? We miss out on a lot of talent because we refuse to be allies. Right. So it's not, so it's that active engagement from writing policies, you know, to saying, to standing up to a relative, family, and friend. But again, consistency. And being brave because somebody's going to be mad at you. And that is simply the way it's going to be. Was it so have in here, was it, but if there continues to be othering and not seeing people as part of themselves, isn't that a problem too? It depends on how we look at that. I love being a Black woman. The othering with malice, the othering with superiority is the problem, right? So it is, and I always like to say, I will celebrate your German, English, Irish, Nigerian, Egyptian, whatever heritage you have, right? And because that's inclusive, I will celebrate with you. I can see you as different. I can see you as being somebody who is living, with limited means, under-resourced. And I can go in and say, listen, let's look at, how I can help you. So let's talk about what would work, based on if you want something else, right? So right there, we are othering in one sense, but we're also saying, but you're a full human too, and you have full autonomy, and I am not better than you, right? So I can tell you at work, I'm not better than our service guys who come in and take out my trash. What I do know is that they have a job I got to show up to. We are kind to each other because I'm not better than them. I just have different training. Doesn't mean I'm smarter than them. I just have different training. That's it. Maybe had different opportunities. We get in trouble and it turns into saviorism and so on when we see ourselves as above, when we see ourselves as better than, when we see ourselves as the sole resource in some cases. That's where we start to do some paternalistic behaviors. Next slide, please. So we're going to do a check-in. Can you turn off the PowerPoint? Because now I want to have a conversation in our last, like 15 minutes. Let's talk about what resonated. So what questions do you have? I wanted to leave time for this. And by the way, if you're saying, why is she a little discombobulated? We had a crisis right before I came on this call, and then my technology didn't work. So I'm a little bit more discombobulated than normal. But what resonated, or what questions do you have? Because sometimes I get a question such as, well, how can I be a better ally? And we can kind of flesh that out a little bit more. And what concerns do you have about allyship? And again, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat box and we'll address it. Or have you decided you're like, I'm done with this allyship. I have no desire to help anyone ever again anymore because it's a lot of work.
I can't raise my hand, I think, because I'm a co-host or something, Dr. Bankhead, but two things I was going to say is, one is, as lawyers, and especially in this day of Facebook and LinkedIn and whatever else, you're kind of out there, I think, in being pushed to promote yourself and promote what you're doing. And I think this is great in terms of the step back of what you're saying and saying, hey, we're being there to be there for others. But I guess the thing is, so now with the law school and the Law Alumni Association, we're doing these programs and we're educating. But I guess my one question is, how about next steps? Because one of the things thoughts that I have on some of this is great, but we're probably talking to a lot of people who still need to take action and do more, but at least are educated, right? And I guess the question is it, should we be doing things more intentional on a more regular basis with younger people or with adults and in different communities and trying to get people? I don't know, what are your thoughts in terms of, I guess part of it is, hey, start on your own, allyship at your own where you work. But how about as a group too? That's what I've kind of struggled with, of thinking about what can be the next steps now, besides continuing these programs and educating, which we will. But how about the next steps? And
Yeah, so the next steps are, you're right, both can be very personal. I think the next steps, if we're talking about at work, so I'm always a fan of saying, okay, so you have staff who are on, who come in, for example, from a marginalized group. who's doing their mentoring? You know, are you giving them, and being almost objective and self-critical? And this doesn't mean hovering over anybody or over, you know, policing them or whatever. But what we're talking about is, you know, so I'm in my imaginary lawyer world, right? The question is, you know, if you're inviting the guy who you're the most comfortable with to go out to dinner, to meet people, to go golfing, because a lot of the legal world is networking, right? Which is why you guys have the best parties ever. But if you have that, are you making sure that that other person is engaged, is invited, is a part of? And let's talk about what that looks like. You know, is it, oh, we're all going for drinks and that person's like not invited, or is the afterthought? Or are you saying things like, well, I don't think that they would really want to participate. Part of allyship is pulling people up as we grow. It's moving people forward. But as an organization, like the Law Alumni Association, you can actually say, okay, well, what communities do we want to ask? Is there anything we can do? Let's talk about what we do. Is there a way we can help? What maybe is needed? It goes back to asking those questions and saying, okay, within our organization, is there a coalition that can maybe address these needs on a consistent basis, so that when boredom sets in, we realize, oh, now's the time to reset. Now's the time to kind of like shift again to keep the work we're doing going. We get distracted very, very easily. So I think that is pretty interesting. Jim just put in the chat, he said, has anyone, wait, I lost you, Jim. Has anyone else noticed how few men are in this meeting? And that seems significant. I did not notice, but I don't know people, but I do tend to find that women are more likely to attend talks like these. I do find that to be generally true. I don't know if that's true in this meeting, but I'm going to trust you if you say that. So I think that that's pretty important. Let's see, what do I have? Someone who has anxiety over confrontation to gain the courage to tell their uncle. I'm a therapist, so I always go to therapy, right? But other than going to therapy, I think that there's something that we all can do, which is kind of go, what do I lose if I tell my uncle? You know, if I'm living with him, that may not be the best idea, but if I'm living on my own and I'm independent, you know, what is the loss? And you get to weigh that. Or if you're talking about gaining the courage, it's, do I want someone to feel as bad or as worse than I do if he makes a negative comment based on their group membership, based on their identity? Am I okay if he says that to them with me sitting there? And so you can start in little chunks. You can say, you know what, I just don't want to hear this, and walk out the room. You know, you can say, you know, if I have children, my children don't need to hear that. You can say, listen, believe what you believe, but please don't bring it here in my space. And if so, I will remove myself. So gaining the courage, I think, is a work in progress, right? And it depends on the type of relationship. We have to remember, you can love somebody deeply and also disagree with them wholly, right? And we have to be really, really clear about that. You can love them and say, but this part of you, I find distasteful. I don't like it. It's unhealthy. And I get to choose who I'm healthy around. Was it, what can universities, departments do to be allies to students and institutions? So I don't know what the graduation rates or the entrance rates are for people of color. I think in some places have dropped off, especially as we get into post-secondary education. So graduate schools, professional schools. I think it's going back out, reaching out and saying, here's opportunities, and not telling every Black or brown student, you need to go into social work or do social justice work, because they may want to, but they may not want to. So I think it's being present. We're going back in. What is needed? How can we show? Let's be present. If we're on campus, when Black, Brown, LGBTQ students say A, B, and C is happening in such and such a department, believe them, right? Believe them and ask. Sometimes there is evidence. Let's see, what do we have? What do you advise for someone who has anxiety over confrontation? We got that one. It seems to me that becoming an ally is a big commitment. It absolutely is, but in an excellent step in the right direction, right? Mutual respect, intentional. Yeah, I mean, so it is a big commitment. I think that's why people shy away from actual true allyship, is because you are committing. You're committing to making change, but think about the payout. The payout financially is so great for organizations. And I mean, because the more diverse a group is, education, businesses, firms, guess what? More money comes in because you have a greater diversity of ideas and access. So fiscally, business-wise, it makes good business sense. Most of us are familiar with mentoring a law student. Tell us, how does the mentoring function compare to allyship with a minority? So here's the thing, is that you can actually talk about having minority status and barriers when you're mentoring. So I mentor students, our psychology interns, I teach, blah, 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 blah. And part of that mentoring is being really honest and saying, listen, let's talk about how we can help you get ahead. And if they bring up or hint around barriers, you can say, let's talk really explicitly. Let's not shy away from talking about race or gender identity or sexual orientation or coming from such and such a community. You can actually talk about that. What I find is that lots of time mentors are like, let's just stay 100% on the business. I'm going to show you how to write this, how to click this box and do whatever. Absolutely. I'm going to give you support, but it does go beyond that. Mentorship also includes saying, I'm going to show you how to navigate this. And I may not have the answers, but I may also connect you to more people who have navigated this well, because I haven't had that experience, but I'm still in here with you and am committed. And that's something really, really, I think, critical. And okay, so, so I think that those are things that are really important, to talk about too, and to recognize as well, is mentoring. And again, you can mentor at any stage in your career. So law students, new hires, or people who have been in law for 20 years, you can still mentor them, right? Or they can seek out mentorship. Mentorship and allyship can go so easily hand in hand, right? Because it is about a relationship with the community and individuals. I would absolutely love to see, if we think about law firms, very few law firms have a lot of people of color, right? Most lawyers, in your guys' case, most lawyers work for the government. And you need to ask yourselves why. Because somewhere in there, allyship is not happening, and somewhere in there, mentorship is not happening. And we're talking nationally, outside of like big hubs, like let's say, Atlanta or New York or perhaps LA. But certainly when I look at websites in Western New York, I'm going, some look more diverse than others. And you have to go, well, why? What is that about? And because allyship means, again, I'm coming alongside you. I'm becoming part of your community, not completely, but to the greatest extent I can. Okay, any last minute questions? Because I know people got to go and I got to go too. My patients get cranky. And you do not want an angry veteran knocking on your door.
Does it make any difference, Dr. Bankhead? Is it better for our students of color to be mentored by a Caucasian or Black?
I think that
we look them up and we don't, we want to do the right thing.
I think that they need to be mentored by people who want to mentor. So being Black doesn't mean I would be a great mentor, right? So I think it's who wants to mentor, who has some level of cultural competence. And again, race may never, ever come up. But certainly if you have mentors who are are people of color who are willing to be there and who are good at it, who are great educators and great supporters. Absolutely. But also if you have somebody white who really is like, listen, I get systemic racism, I get systemic oppression and how it could impact this particular student, then 100%, then that person may totally be appropriate. So race matching is not necessarily a good thing. And we find the same thing with our psychology students. Someone says the best addressed areas needs to be inner city public schools, have to have 50% greater failure at reading and so on. Yeah, I mean, so again, being actively involved in public schools is a great way because you're showing them options. But again, believe them when they say, here's kind of my story, here's what's happening, including the good stuff. We always assume allyship is all about the negative. It is also about the good. Communities have power. Communities are positive. Look for that. Part of an ally is to also look for the good stuff. All right. I think I'm done. I hope somebody got something out of this and that it was moderately useful.
We did, Dr. Bankhead. Thank you so much. I know I did, and you got my mind really racing here. Can't thank you enough for taking the time and your thoughtfulness and your being asking provoking questions. I know one of the things that I kind of had been taught and have read a bit about is also the allyship, how diversity is more important than ever now, because when you've got diversity and people coming together, you've got a greater likelihood of innovation and better performance. And so hopefully we can all embrace that and be allies and be consistent. I put the support at the beginning as the guinea pig out there, and I appreciate all that you've done to just educate me today. So thank you so much. We will be in touch. I again thank Heather and the Social Justice and Racial Equity Committee of the Law Alumni Association for contacting you and bringing this program to us. Thank you, Dean Aviva and the law school and everybody. And I see a bunch of law professors on here for supporting this. And Jim, good point. I hadn't paid attention on male versus female numbers on this. So we'll keep trying to pay attention to that. And I hope this inspires everybody to not only have a great day, but I guess we'll end with how you started. Discomfort can foster growth. So hopefully we can all think about this, get a little uncomfortable, including myself, and grow and continue to search and try to be better.
Right.
So you're the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Yep, great job. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.